What did we do so far? We did the Rambam. The end of Hilchas Mila, where he speaks about how Orla is disgusting and Mila is special. He speaks about the fact that Mila has Yud Gimel Brises. The Torah has only 3 covenants, and Mila has 13 covenants. And then we learned the Medrash. And this Medrash is the sheet of the Rasag, Rabbi Sadia Gaon. If you remember, I gave you this whole philosophy. That the Medrash says that the reason for the Mila is to fix the person who has inexactitude. There's something wrong with the person, the way the Eibishter made him, and the person has to be fixed, and we fix him. If Hashem is perfect, why aren't His creations perfect? So we have the mashal of kernels of wheat versus a ready-to-eat cookie. The Eibishter made kernels of wheat, He wants us to repair it. This was the Medrash and the Rasag. Then we spent a couple of days on the Rambam, the Meir Nevuchim. The Rambam, of course, disagrees. The Rambam doesn't like that idea. The Rambam is not comfortable saying that a perfect God made anything imperfect. The Rambam says instead, it's too much for us. And we removed the Arla because it's Mamayed the Taiva. That's what the Rambam puts it. Right? He says it's a little different than Rasag. We removed the Arla to limit the Taiva. He also says something very interesting, which is that Mila, it makes us part of a group. It identifies us as members of a community. It binds us and separates us from everybody else. It makes us b'nei bris. I remember as a kid growing up, in benching. Then it says in parenthesis, b'nei bris, end the parenthesis, and b'nei bris you don't read. It's just written there. It's supposed to think it. Did you ever notice b'nei bris? B'nei Bris means people have Bris Mila. That's what it means. It means Yidden. And of course, the Mishnah says in the Rambam Paskins that a Yid who's an Odel is called a Mol, and a Goy who is a Gemalt is called an Odel. That's how the Zerayis from this Psukim.
What?
A Yid who's an Odel is called a Gemalite, circumcised. If he can't do it, Machmas Sakona. And a Goy who has a Bris is called an Odel. Kikola Amim Adalei Leiv. So this was the Rambam. This was the Meir Nevuchim. Then we went on to the Alter Rebbe. And the Alter Rebbe introduced us to 2 concepts of Bris, Mila and Priya, the basic Bris and the finer Bris. And he connected to Chitzonius Halev and Pnimius Halev, Av, which comes from Seichel, and Av, which comes from the Neshama. And he made a compelling argument that even though the Priya, the inner Bris, has to be done by Hashem, like it says in the Pasuk, Hashem does the circumcision. Every time a Yid davens, it's an experience of Liyasid Lovei, and a Yid in his davening can reach both levels, the level of Chitzonius Alev and the Pnimius Alev, and you have to do Mila and Priya. How can I do Mila and Priya? The answer is one word. This is one of the Alter Rebbe's favorite words, as you all know, tzedakah. The Alter Rebbe holds that a person could give tzedakah to such an extent that not only removes the Orla Hagasa, which makes him gemalit, but it can even remove the Orla Hadaka, the finer Orla, the Priya, right? And he says something interesting, I think it's very interesting, that the word Priya, which means to pay a debt, has the same shadish as the word Priya by a Bris. Because when a person is Peireya, a person pays his debts, he can even remove the Orla Hadaka. This is what we learned, okay? Now, we're going to learn now Torah Oyer. This is the Maimer you're all going to chazeh with God's help when you'll have a lot of boys by all the Brisin. Most people just get up in the morning, they open Torah and they read it verbatim. We're now going to learn the last Maimer in Torah in Lech, which is this week's Parsha. It's a very short Maimer, and I really plan, I've got half an hour approximately, I really plan to learn the whole thing today. We're going to learn only the underline, and it's the same issue. The same issue we had in the Tanya, we're going to have in Torah. Same author, the Alter Rebbe. It's a tiny ma'amim, and we're only going to read what's underlined. It's page 7 and 8. I just want to say one thing by way of introduction. That there's 2 psukim. One pasuk says, "Umaltem es orlas levavachem." You should circumcise the orla, the blockage of your own heart. And the other pasuk says, "Umal Hashem lekechas levavcha." Hashem will remove, will do the circumcision on the blockage of your heart. So the Alter Rebbe, of course, explains, "Umaltem es orlas levavchem" is called Mila. Is called Priya. Meaning, we're in a position to move the blockages to our heart in what's called Chitzonius Halev, as much as our heart comes from our brain. But we're not able to remove the blockages of our heart when the heart is called Pnimius Halev, when the heart comes from the Neshama. This the Eibishter has to do. Now let's learn the Maimer, okay? The Maimer begins, I'm reading the underline, okay? The first page is easy to read because it's a bigger type. Second page is a bit smaller, but I hope your eyesight is better than mine because I would not be able to see it. Mipnei ma lo yimol Avraham Avinu al Vashal. The Gemara says, the Mishnah says, the Gemara says, and it's a big chiddush. Kimu ha'aves kol ha'teira kula atla nitna, the Avos kept the whole Teira. Right? You guys know from Chumash Rashi that Adam Rishon learned Teira, that Cain and Hevel learned Teira, that Mr. Shalach learned Teira, that Chanech learned Teira, that Neach learned Teira, that Shem learned Teira, that Avil learned Teira. There were people who learned Teira, but they didn't do the mitzvahs. They studied the Teira, but at the din of Ben Neach, they kept only Sheva mitzvahs. By the Aves, Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, there's a Chiddush Nifla that Kimu Kol Teira. They didn't only learn, they practiced the whole Teira. There's a couple of howevers. Number one, the Aves did the Teira, the Shvatim did not. The Shvatim were B'nai Neach. It's a weird thing. There's a Rabbi Yosef Engel has in his Sefer, I think Asvan Deiraisa at the very beginning, that the Aves had a din of Yidden, and the Shvatim, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, even Yosef, had a din of B'nai Neach. They didn't keep Tayag mitzvahs, only Sheva mitzvahs. The Aves kept the Kashas Fakert. Why were the Aves keeping Tayag mitzvahs? They were B'nai Neach. And the Rebbe says, Rapi Halacha, they were B'nai Neach. Which meant that if ever there was a conflict between the Sheva mitzvahs and the Tayag mitzvahs, that to be mevater on the Tayag mitzvahs to Mekayim the Sheva mitzvahs. That's how the Rebbe explained that Yankov had to marry Rachel. Even though in mitzvahs HaTeira you're not allowed to marry two sisters, but mitzvah Sheva mitzvahs and midas HaChesed and midas Zogan Emes, midas Emes, David, he promised Rachel he's going to marry her. So Yankov had to overlook the Chiyuv and Tayag mitzvahs, the Isser against marrying two sisters, because they had a din of B'nai Neach. They were, so to speak, Mahader, to keep Tayag mitzvahs. Of course, there's the Ramban, as my uncle says, the first Zionist, who says that they practice mitzvahs only in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. That's why Yankov was able to marry two sisters outside Eretz Yisrael. And the Ramban says something very disturbing. The minute he crossed the border from Chutz La'aretz into Eretz Yisrael, Rachel died. So the Ramban says. It's upsetting. It's upsetting. As they said to Ramban. They kept,
Is that true?
It's true, but the question is why. There's a, you know, if you understand, there's so many in Yarmah that are shown, they're very conflicted, including the geography. How did they travel? He was in Chor, he came back to Tzol. How did he go? The different Rishonim, the different opinions, what the route was. And based on the route, you can answer your question, whether the first place he came to was Shechem, which is in the south. Chor is in the north. Chor is where Syria is. Yeah, and we know where Shechem, we know where Cave Rachel is. It's in the center, south of Eretz Yisrael. How was the first place he came? It has to do with roots. And I'm not a big maven in this. I learned it years ago, but I don't know it. Anyway, so there's a Pacha Takasha. They kept the whole mitzvahs, whole Torah, yeah? And he didn't do a bris. Why did Avraham Avinu not do circumcision? Till he was 99 years old. If he kept the whole Torah before it was given. Of course, you have a right to ask a basic question, and it happens to be mamish the Tanya of one of these days, mamish. No, not these days. How do you know the Torah? How did he know the Torah? How did anybody know the Torah? How did Noach know what's a kosher animal, what's a treifa animal? Torah has not been given. And the answer is, the way it's explained in Tanya, that these people were modern the Kubolim. They knew Seidas. They knew Seidas HaTorah because they knew Seidas HaBriyah. And they knew the Nigla from the Nister. They went from the Kabbalah to the Nigla. As they state Tanya. That they understood the secrets of the Torah so well that they even understood what the practical mitzvahs that are going to come from that Torah would be had the Torah been given. So he did all of the mitzvahs, but he didn't do a bris. Favos nicht. And of course, it's a pashta teretz, right? You do a bris when you're told, because one thing about the bris, you can't do it twice. Yeah, you did it once, can't do it a second time. So the Alter Rebbe explains it up Chassidus. And he brings a pasuk. It's Tine. The first pasuk says, "Umaltem orlas levavachem." You should circumcise the blockage of your own heart. Uksiv, the second pasuk says, "Umal lava yelekachas levavacha." The Eibush should circumcise it. These are the same two psukim we had in Tanya Geras HaKodesh Dalet, right? Upirish, this means yesh beis bechinas mila. There's two levels of circumcision. Ha'achas, the first is mulmat alamayla, what we're able to do by ourselves. Shetzrichim anu, we must lom ulas odlas alev, to remove the blockage to the heart. Says the Lech Rebbe who in Yanat Tshuva, which is the theme of tshuva, as the pasuk says, V'shavta ad Hashem Lecha. You have to do tshuva. You have to come back to the Eibishter. Beki yom teiru mitzvahs and doing teiru mitzvahs. V'Amar Azal says in the Gemara, Im Yisrael leisim tshuva. If and when the Jewish people do tshuva, they're going to be redeemed. V'im lav, and if they're not going to do tshuva, they're not going to be redeemed. Of course, you know the Medrash, right? Because this is Avraham Fried's, my favorite Avraham Fried's niggin. Yeah. That since the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, it's a combination of a Medrash and also he brings a part of it from the Balafla. This guy Green, Yossi Green, made a song based on a Medrash with a commentary from the Balafla. That since the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, there's an ongoing machlokes. What's the machlokes? Yidden say to the Hashem says to Yidden, Shuva elai v'shuva aleichem. Hashem says to Yidden, you come back to me and I'll come back to you. And Yidden say to the Eibishter, Hashivenu Hashem Lecha v'Shuva. You come back to us and we'll come back to you. So everyone is waiting on everybody else. The Eibishter says, you do tshuva first, I'll do tshuva second. And Yidden answer him, you do tshuva first, and we'll. So how does the niggin go? There's a psaktin, Yached v'Rabbi, Malach v'Rabbi. The Eibishter is one, we're many. So the psaktin is like us. So I've watched from the Balafla, from the Alter Rebbe's Chaverim. It's interessant. Inyan. But there's the old question, who does tshuva first, we or us? According to what's written here, we do tshuva first. Right? He brings the pasuk. V'shavta ad Hashem Lecha. And only afterwards does the Eibush to bring us back. And this pasuk, V'shavta, is actually in Parshas Nitzavim, which talks about Mashiach. And it says, when Mashiach comes, you know how the whole story goes. Yid living in Eretz Yisrael. And they become rich, and they become powerful, and they become independent, and they become successful. And then they forget about the Eibush. Or to say it alternatively, they become their own Eibush. What happens the minute Yidden stop forget about the Eibishter? All the kind of not good stuff starts to happen. Sada starts to happen. They get punished, they get exiled, whatever it is. They feel bad, they do tshuva, and the Eibishter brings them back. That's the cycle. And this pasuk, V'shavta ad Havaya Lecha, this is their tshuva. So the first thing that happens is we do tshuva. This is umaltem es orlas levavachem. And I'm reading 3 lines from the bottom. V'achar kibbutz Goliath, then Mashiach comes. And the Eibishter gathers the exile. The pasuk says, "V'yachar la'aretz," Hashem brings us into Eretz Yisrael, v'yitivecha, and He does it for us a toiv, a goodness. And the Rebbe holds that this word v'yitivecha doesn't mean that He gives us many jelly beans. V'yitivecha means He gives us elam haba, He gives us an inyan nitzchi. Says the Rebbe, "V'hu hamila shemul ma'lamat." This is an allusion to the bris, which is from the top down, with the pasuk of Mila v'yilekach. So we know that there's 2 concepts of bris. We did this already the last couple of days. We do first, Hashem does second. Please turn the page. Go to page 8 now. And the Alter Rebbe explained that you have a little bit of smaller type, but you should be able to manage it. Your eyes are younger than mine. The first phenomenon of circumcision, which is from the bottom up, he is arusa dilatato. Is an arousal from below. It's an initiation. We work on ourselves to fix ourselves to the best of our limited abilities, right? And the way I explained it to you, and of course I didn't make this up, we're able to repair the chitzonius halev, the outer heart. We're able to repair the heart that comes from the brain. Then he continues, V'serusa de'leyelahu, the Eibish's reciprocity, the Eibish's giving back, the arousal from above, is a gilui of bechinas u'molavaya lekecha, molavaya es levavacha. That Hashem gives back to us for our act of Mila on the level of Chitzonius Halev, a gift of Mila, or what we're calling Priya, on Pnimius Halev, reciprocally. So there's 2 bris in every bris. Now, what's the difference? The first bris is plain, simple avoid. I have blockages in my life, I have to remove them. The second bris, the Rebbe is going to tell us in a minute, is higher than mitzvahs. Okay? V'hinei. Al Mila shniya hazois, on this second circumcision, Sheyeh la'achar kibbutz goes, which happens after Mashiach comes and the Beis Hamikdash is built, and Yidden are gathered from the whole world. Ul'achar kiyam ha'teira kula, and the fulfillment of all the Torah. Ksiv, the pasuk says, Mi yale lanu hashamayma. These words, Mi yale lanu hashamayma, are in the same sequence where you have the pasuk Yikarev elecha adav me'ed. Mi yale lanu hashamayma means who will ascend for us into the heavens. So the Alter Rebbe makes please look at the 4 words. It's the 4th line into the page. Mi starts with a mem. The yud, yala starts with a yud. Lamed starts with a lamed. Lanu starts with Lamed and Hashemayim starts with Hey. That's Mila. Look at the last letter of those four words. The last letter of Mi is a Yud, the last letter of Yale is Hey, the last letter of Lanu is Vav, and the last letter of Hashemayim is K. So this word, the beginning, the first letters are Mila, and the last letters are Havaya. So the Rebbe says this means that Mila is higher than Shem Havaya. V'haraya Mila is the Rasha Tevis, and Havaya is the Sefer Tevis. So he reads inside, Ksiv, Mi, Yala, Lanu, Hashemayim, Rasha Tevis, Mila. It's Rasha Tevis, it's the abbreviation of Mila. It's higher than the Torah. Why? Because the pasuk states that when you do a bris, Mi Yala Lanu Hashamayma, who's going to help us ascend into the heavens? When it comes to Torah, it says Le Bashamayim Torah is not in heaven. She nishpelas lamata dafka. The Torah comes down into this world, and Mila is going up into the heavens. And he adds, I'm going to the next underline. Please skip. Come to here. V'nikra Teiras Havaya. The Torah is called the Torah of Hashem. Now, I don't have time to give you a long lecture. I would love to, but I don't have time. But there's three levels, B'klalos. 3 levels in Torah and the 3 levels in mitzvahs. The 3 levels that are called Torah Isai, my Torah, Torah Hashem, and Torah HaMelech. And corresponding to that, you have Mitzvah Isai, you have Mitzvah Hashem, and you have Mitzvah HaMelech. In Vayomer, right, you say first, Ur Isam Eiseu is Chartem, it's called Mitzvah Havaya. Then you said later, Laman Tiskiru Vasisam is called Mitzvah Isai. Api Kabbalah, Mitzvah HaMelech, the lowest level is in Malchus. Mitzvah Havai, this is Atzilus. Mitzvah Isai, this is Kesed. So the Rebbe argues, Torah Hashem is Atzilus, Mila is Ein Seif. Bris Mila is higher than Torah. And you're going to see a Mitzvah Hashem in one of the sichas that I'm going to be teaching you later. Bli Neder. And by the way, I'm probably going to change the sicha from what's in here to a different sicha, which I realized. I'm sorry? I'm hoping to teach you a sicha where the Rebbe is going to argue that this is why when we do a bris now, we still say Lachnise Bevrise Shel Avram Avinu to enter into the covenant of Abraham, even though we don't do a bris because of Avram Avinu. We do a bris because of Matan Torah, because the idea that Avram Avinu's bris is higher than Torah. And this is what the Rebbe now says. V'nikra Torah's Havaya. Torah is called Havaya. What does Havaya mean? I mean, if you want to be Kabbalistic, just for a moment, this is part of a good thing to remember. If somebody asks you what's Shem Havaya, the most useful answer to the question of what's Shem Havaya is Havaya is 4 letters, Yud Kei Vav Kei. It's the delivery system for Ein Seif. Havaya is how Ein Seif comes from it. Havaya means Ein Seif, how it moves from a higher level to a lower level. Look inside. Huh? Look, Yud, Tzimtzum. Hey is Pashtus. Vav, Amshach, V'chul. Yud means the Ein Seif is reduced to a smaller quality. Then that expands, and that's drawn lower, and so on. Shaydeiza and Nimshchalamata. Shem Havaya, which is connected to Teiras Havaya, and Mitzvah Havaya, is the idea that in Atzilus, there's a revealed level of godliness connected to Torah, and there's a revealed level of godliness connected to Mitzvahs. Avol Mila Hanal. Please look inside. But the aforementioned Mila, Hi L'mayla Mishem Havaya, it's higher than Shem Havaya. Achehi Berasha Tevis, the first letters of the 4 words, Mi, Yala, Lanu, Hashamayma, is Mila. Shem Havayu b'Sefer Torah, the 4 letters, Shem Havayu, the last letters. Valkain, therefore, Torah is not Bashamayim, but Mila, Hi Bechino, Madreges Hashamayim, it's in the level of Hashamayim. And accordingly, it's Lamayla, Bechinas HaTorah, Mila is higher than the Torah, Shenishpel Lamata, which was lowered on him, Bechinas Hashamayim, Ela from the heaven. So Torah is godliness that's brought close to us, and Mila is godliness that's not brought close to us. In other words, when we're learning Torah and doing mitzvahs, Hashem is bringing Himself close to us. When we're doing a Bris Mila, and of course the way you have to understand this means the higher concept of the Bris Mila, not the lower concept of the Bris Mila. The lower concept of Mila is taka mitzvah, but the higher concept of a Bris Mila is us going up into the heavens, higher than Shem Havaya, higher than Ishtalshlos, higher than Atzilus. V'lachein, I'm skipping again on the next underlined, bottom of the first column on page 26. V'lachein, therefore, Nichrisa b'Yud Gimel Brises. This is why by Bris Mila you have 13 covenants, right? How many covenants does the Torah have? 3. The whole Torah has 3 covenants. One was at Har Sinai, one was at Arvis Moav, and one was in Har Gerizim. And as I told you the other day, there's reasons why we have 3. One of them is that that the first one is for Teda Shebeksav. That means Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah. The second one is for Teda Shebapeh. In other words, for Halacha L'maisa, practical being a Jew, Teda Mitzvahs, Maisias. And number 3, the third Bris is for Arvos, that we're responsible for each other. And Bris Mila has 13. Why? Because Teda and Mitzvahs is in Ishtalshalos. Mitzvahs is in Yigimel Midas HaRachamim. Right? Lechein Nichras Abi Yigimel Bris says this is why Teda has only 3 covenants. And Bris Mila has 13. Pirush, this means to say, Kidu, as we know. The concept of a covenant is that it is something it's above logic. Al derech, for example, beis oyhavim, 2 people who are friends. Sha'oisim krisis bris, they make a covenant between them. Lehiyes eyhavim zazet, that their love should be unconditional. Dahainu, in other words, sheyuchrach lihiyes eyhavei, he should love his friend forever. Af, even if nimshtach etzle ahava zuei love, if the love would not continue and be sustained, achakach, later on, mitadasechel vadas, based on reason, top of the second column, page 8, top of the second column, mikomakim still, machriach atzatzme, he compels himself la'ava to love, bebechin in a category shalamalam asechel vadas, above reason. It's a very simple concept. I remember this happening to me. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I'm saying I was a kid. I'm talking before Bar Mitzvah. I was into sports. And I had a whole group of friends. I had one friend that was very, very close. Then I turned Bar Mitzvah, and that was the end of my sports. And that was the end of our friendship. And he never understood why I stopped being his friend. We were such good friends. We'd spent so much time together. I mean, we're now in our 50s. Whenever we meet, he's still trying to figure out what happened to our friendship. Now, I'm guilty. I was all of 13. I mean, what do you want from a 13-year-old? But our friendship was based on the New York Yankees. When the Yankees stopped being important to me, their friendship went away. The truth is it's wrong. Friendship should not be conditional, but that's how it was. I also went to a different yeshiva, and then I went to a different state. That helped. But the point is the following. The point is this. People have friendships for reasons. It's called the Lashon HaMishnah, Ahava hatluya bedavar, conditional friendships. If you share a friendship with another, even 2 chavre in a dormitory in a yeshiva, they have a conditional friendship. They're together. They learn together. They play together. They antagonize their neighbors together. I don't know what it is that they do, but you join. You become friends over things. You have common interest. 2 people like music. 2 people like art. 2 people love Torah. Now it's possible that over time their interests will change. If one of them gets married, then the other doesn't. If one gets married and goes to shlichus, the other doesn't. If one gets married and has many children, the other one gets married and maybe only gives him a few children. They drift apart. The friendship dissolves. Why? Because they were not really friends with one another. They were friends with davar, with a third thing. I like music, you like music, so we like each other, but it's not each other that we like, it's the music. It's called ahavat loiv, it's called a conditional love. Love based on a reason. There's something called ahava she'eina tluya b'davar, an unconditional love. What's an unconditional love? The love between parents, between a father and a son, and a mother and a daughter, brothers and sisters. One of the weirdest things that you have in Chassidus is that Chassidus actually argues that the deepest relationship possible is not a natural love. The deepest relationship possible is an ish and an isha, a husband and a wife. That's not the teva, right? A father and a son, they have the same neshama, the same behus, same genes. I'm not saying it's true, a mother. Same as your brothers and sisters. Ish v'isha is an artificially created ahava, but it's considered ahava she'en tluya b'davar. So what happens? You have a friend, you like him. But you also know that you like this friend for a reason. You like him for a reason. Yeah, what happens if that reason goes away? What if the reason goes away? Both of you shared a common interest in music, and then he lost interest in music, or he couldn't play music anymore, or whatever the reason was. He turned out to be a failure at music. So you drift away. The friendship goes away. So you make a covenant. You make a bris. And lahavdil, in some cultures, they literally make a blood oath. That's exactly what they do. You get together, whether you prick your own skin and draw blood, as Mistam and Nishta is gehalten, it may be involved in the Isser Darki HaMoiri, but the concept is, 2 people get together, and they say, we're going to make a covenant that our love is not conditional. Even though we became friends for this reason, or this reason, or this reason, our love will exceed, our love will last beyond the reason. This is called a covenant, the Krisis Bris. Now, if you're familiar with Chassidus, you know there's two levels of Krisis Bris. There's a Krisis Bris that people could make, and there's a Krisis Bris which only the Eibishter could make. Without going into the Arichas, the Krisis Bris that a person could make comes from the Madrega called Chaya, and the Krisis Bris which the Eibishter is able to make is a Krisis Bris from Madrega which is called Yechidah. Bris Mila is a covenant that God makes. That's why you do it. Whatever it says in one of the Sichos. The reason you make the Bris when you're 8 days old, because the Hashem is making the covenant, not us. If we made the covenant, it could only be the Madrega of Chaya. It couldn't be the Madrega of Yechidah. So you do it before the child can even think, so that the Krisis Bris is from the Eibishter's side. So it's a higher level of Krisis Bris, which is impossible to dissipate. It's a Krisis Bris of Yechidah. But that's the meaning of a covenant. It's a blood oath. Two people who share something, and they want that their bond should exceed the parameters of the sharing. They want that the love should last beyond the thing that brought them together. Their bond should be stronger than the glue, that the adhesive which brought them together in the beginning. And that's Bris Mila. So the Alter Rebbe says Bris Mila is higher than Shem Havaya. It's a connection with Yidden and the Eibishter, which is not logical. It's not even logical within the parameters of Torah. It's a bond which is on the level of 13. 13 means the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, which is higher than Shem Havaya. It's higher than Atzilus. Back to the text, please. Page 26, second column, second line. V'kach, similarly, kedei liyas giloi v'amshocha b'chines mila hagadei lahana. Every event of bris, every circumcision is two circumcisions. Number one, a bris is a mitzvah. And as much as bris is a mitzvah, the fancy words that you would use is mitzvahs havaya, mitzvahs harin atzilas. Number two, a bris is called Mila HaGedoyla. We're creating a bond between yourself and Hashem, which is higher than the Torah. Okay? And that's called Mitzvah Isai, Mitzvah and Keser. That's called Priya. That's called Umal Hashem Lecha. Says the Rebbe, Hu Al Yedei Yud Gimel Mides Harachamim. The second bris, the higher bris, comes from the level of 13 attributes of mercy. It's all together above reason, it's above the Torah, and so on. So now that Avraham Avinu has a cheshbon. B'chal Avraham Avinu's mitzvahs before Matan Torah are not as great as ours. But even if Avraham Avinu is able to reach Atzilus, one thing Avraham Avinu knows, he can't reach Ein Sof. And there's another thing Avraham Avinu knows. If he makes a bris, he can't make another. So Avraham says, I'll do all the mitzvahs. I'm not going to do a bris till I'm told. Because I'm not making a Mila without a Priya. I'm not making it, forgive me for saying it, a Goyish bris. I'm not making a bris which removes the blockages of Chitzonius Alev in a way that does not remove the blockages of Pnimius Alev. And if I have to, I'll wait till I'm 99 years old for the Eibush to give me the instruction. Let's read it inside. V'hine. This is the Pshat. And again, I just reviewed you through the Maimed that everybody says by a bris. So you have a heads up. I'm basically learning the whole Maimed. I'm reading certain lines, but the point we're learning, Inyan, the idea, Shavraham Kiem Kola Teira Kula Achaloi Nidna. Avraham Avinu did the whole Teira even though it wasn't given. And at the same time, V'loi Kiem Mitzvah Mila, he refused to do circumcision. Mipnei, the reason is, Sheratza Lahagia La'esa Mila Gedela. Avraham was hoping to reach and to touch and to be touched by the higher level of Mila, which is Milmaila Lamata from the top down. There's a Bris Chevre between Yidden and Hashem, which is beyond even the Seichel HaTorah. God does that. We can't do that. That's Umal Hashem Lecha. That's not Umaltem. And Avraham was going to wait until the Eibishter gave him that koyach. Ulakach. And therefore, Kiyam Kol HaTorah Kula, he did the whole Torah. Shalamato Me'esa Milo, which is less than that Bris. V'achakach Zocha, and only afterwards did he merit La'oisa Mila Gedela Shemul Maila, the greater Mila, which is from above, because he did it on instruction. If Avraham had done the bris by himself, it would have been limited to his capabilities of doing a bris. It would have been the lower bris. It would have not been the higher bris. He wanted the higher. They're never going to go on to say this is how he's zeichet el mabah, marav tuvchat v'antlariecha, whatever fancy stuff. But Avraham was not going to do the bris until he was told, because Avraham understood the higher concept of bris milah. Now I want to say something to you. I'm going to say it now in a few words. It's going to be a topic that I'm hoping to teach you over the next classes on Mila, because I have a whole vision of what I want to cover. It's a lot, and I'm hoping I'll be able to cover it. But one of the things that I want to share with you is, we know that there's a big difference between doing mitzvahs before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah. Doing mitzvahs before Matan Torah is like having a smell of a perfume. Doing mitzvahs after Matan Torah is having the bottle of the perfume. Right there it says. But it also says in some places that there's a level of connection to Hashem, which is, quote, L'mayla megeder eliyim v'tacht. There's a connection to Hashem on a level of Mesiras Nefesh, where there was no gzeira in the first place, about al yenim liyedel tachteinim, tachteinim liyal yenim. The Rebbe is going to argue that Bris Mila is an expression of a connection with Yidden and Hashem, where there was never a gzeira in the first place. It's higher than Geder eliyim v'tacht. And the Rebbe is going to explain, this is why when you and I make a bris, we say, we're bringing ourselves into the covenant of Abraham, even though we don't do mitzvahs because of Avraham, we do mitzvahs because of Matan Torah, because there's a property of the bris of Avraham, which is on a level of Mesiras Nefesh, which is higher than Geder Eliyim V'Tachton. The reason Avraham reached that is because Avraham waited to be told. He did all other 612 mitzvahs. Mila, he says, I'm not doing till I'm told because I want to have Mila Ha'alyena. And I will see you later in Mirza Hashem. And I wish you a good morning and I wish you many blessings.